Well, hello and welcome to this Ingenta webinar. Ingenta produce various publishing platforms and publishing systems to help manage and monetize content. And in this webinar, our guest presenter is Christina from Digital Science, who will discuss Altmetric and Dimensions. Our flagship Ingenta Connect publishing platform integrates with both of these, as does Ingenta Connect Unity and our standalone content delivery platform, Ingenta Edify, which is powered by semantic web technology. Christina is the digital solutions specialist for Altmetric and Dimensions and works with universities and research institutes to leverage their strategy around research communication and research assessment. Before joining Digital Science and the Altmetric team, Christina used to be a medical librarian focused on the responsible use of metrics, delivering trainings for all library resources and organising science-focused events. I will now pass you over to Christina. Thank you very much.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Mike, for the lovely introduction. And thank you for having me today. Thank to you and to Ingenta team and everyone joining us today on this lovely afternoon. Without further ado, let me just go into introducing also my parent company, Digital Science. Digital Science is actually a family of smaller companies, each of them focused on a different area of science and research. For example, companies like Overleaf and Gigantum are focused on creating collaborative environments for either writing code or writing articles, or in the case of Figshare, creating repositories and repository solutions. And the two that I'm actually going to be talking about today, Altmetric is a company in itself, so follows the tradition, and it looks at non-traditional attention to research. I'm going to go into more detail about that in a few minutes. And Dimensions is actually the only one that is not a company. It's actually a product of internal collaboration, and the first one for Digital Science, where multiple companies put together resources to build a tool that looks at the research landscape in all of its complexity, basically. So it's not just looking at just building another ANI database and look at publications and impact through the lenses of simply publications, because that's just truncating what is going on right now in any research field. But actually looking at the entire landscape. So how do grants influence publications? Do publications funded by the European Commission end up being mentioned in patents by IBM, or do they end up being mentioned in clinical trials that are conducted by Harvard University? And all of that you can see just by following where research is going and what is going on, but also you would be able to be on top of things in a way, because you will be able to detect trends. Grants are awarded, but it takes 1-2 years until you would get to have the first publication out of it. And also you can plan in advance. So Dimensions became, in a way, a complex data web, because we're moving again away from publications. And the publication itself, so the publication part is free to read. So if you go to app.dimensions.ai, you will find all the publications, all the data there for free with no additional costs. But there is more to that story. We didn't just want to build a copycat ANI database. We wanted to give more value and help you make strategic decisions around research. And that is why we added full text indexing, the article level classification, so all the publications and dimensions, and all of the other data types, so the patents, the grants, the clinical trials, and the policy documents. They're all categorized with the same categorization systems and with an item level categorization. So we don't take journal level categorization systems, for example. And on top of that, there's also the API, which has very fast become my favorite way to get data out of Dimensions and create all sorts of visualizations, try and understand all the linkages between the different data types. And there are a couple of examples that I've included in the presentation as well. But just off the bat, you can create your own dashboards. You can come up with your own type of metrics. So you don't have to use metrics that a company decided are or aren't relevant, or journals that a company decided that are relevant for your assessment. In a way, we want to empower you to come up with your own research strategy. On the other side, Altmetric looks even broader when it comes to engagement and impact of research. And it's looking at non-traditional attention to research. So how is research perceived and talked about in the news? Who is talking about research in the news or blogs in Japan? Because both Altmetric and Dimensions are language agnostic. So in both of them, you can search in any language. And we would surface publications and tweets in any language. So for Altmetric, we track different types of attention sources, such as YouTube, news sites, blogs, policy documents, and patents. Again, in all the different types of languages, well, in all the different languages, all different alphabets, as long as a publication has an identifier, we are able to track and put together what is being said around that publication. And this way, you would have a better understanding on how your research influences government policies, or how are they talking about research on their public social channels. How is the general public talking about research or understanding research, and how is it best to reach out to them with a consistent communication strategy, especially with sensitive, I would call them sensitive topics, like vaccine awareness, and that it's good to have your vaccines up to date. And the very interesting things about the different content types that Altmetric tracks is that they all have a different lifespan. So when it comes to tweets, the second the publication appears, it's easy to put together a couple of characters and send your tweet into the wild. But when it comes to news and blogs, it takes more time to actually write something meaningful. So it might take hours or it might take days. And when it comes to policy or to patents, that might take even longer. Usually, if you search for a batch of publications in Altmetric, you will see that they won't have any attention in either policy or patents until at least 1 year after they've been published. So it's quite interesting to understand the dynamics of how a publication is being distributed in all these different means of communication. There's also an API, so if you want to come up with your own dashboards, come up with your own strategy building around research communication or research assessment, depending on the country you're from, you're of course very welcome to do that as well. There's also a program involving both Altmetric and Dimensions catered to bibliometric researchers, where we do give away data for free. So if you have a great idea about new ways of interpreting and coming up with new ways of looking at data, feel free to apply to our research assessment program. And one other thing that I very, very much like about both Altmetric and Dimensions is that they are made to integrate. It's not just data there and you are stuck to a website or a platform and you have to use it. You can take the data out. In this example that I'm using here, Ingenta has both Dimensions and Altmetric embedded on their platforms, which is great to see. And I guess the donuts, the Altmetric donuts, are by far the most colorful ones, and you've probably encountered them in more than one website. And here I've just put together some examples of how to use the data, because of course I can say all the most amazing things about the two platforms, but what you can actually do with it, right? And this is one example. So there's an immense talk around open access and how open access influences research. And this is just looking at a particular university I've renamed as Liliput University in the past 10 years. And what we see is that consistently the international collaboration in terms of open access publication is at around 74% of what they publish open access, so that's quite a high percentage. Whereas for closed publications, their international collaboration is at around 50%. And international collaboration is very, very important, not just because it sounds great, but also because you get different ideas, different ways of looking at things, and also the overall metrics are higher for all publications that have international collaboration. So it's not just me. You can, of course, look at yourself in context. So how do you compare against your closest collaborators, or research institutes that do something similar to you, but you're not collaborating yet, or against institutions for which you compare or you compete against for grants. And you come up with all sorts of ways of comparing yourself against them. This is just, again, a very basic international collaboration from the lenses of open access publication. And what is the impact of international collaboration? So you have collaborators from all across the world, and maybe you would want to have more collaboration or collaborate with more institutions from a particular country. So you can just have a country level analysis of what am I doing so far in which fields, what is the impact that I'm having from different lenses. So not just looking at one metric, because that's never useful, but you can look, for example, from the perspective of the altmetric attention, the FCR, which is the field weighted metric that we have in Dimensions, or you can come up with your own metric and help you measure where you would want to find more collaborators. And this is, again, like looking inside, what are your strongest fields, in, again, looking from multiple lenses, from both open access and closed publications, but also with the field-weighted citation metric, the FCR. And you can come up and decide where you would want to move forward. So would you like to maybe recruit more people for your clinical sciences department, or for your artificial intelligence and images, your artificial intelligence team? Which are your major funders in a field? And I've just used one of the categorization systems that we have in Dimensions called RCDC, used mainly in the US. And it is a medical categorization system. So which are the major funders in the field, but not just who they are, but also with contextual information. So how much of their annual budget are they spending on what I am interested in? In this case, quite a bit. And with the new embedding or connection between Altmetric and Dimensions, actually all of your searches, no matter how complex they are in Dimensions, you can just move them over into Altmetric. And here you can start to have your communication strategy around that. Either understand an existing field, who are the major news outlets that are talking about research, and who are, of course, the journalists. What are they saying about it? Are they covering it in a correct way? Because more often they're not, especially when it comes to news, they go after the sensational headlines, and they're not exactly covering what you're saying correctly. So reaching out to them and educating the wider public, and working with your communications team within the university or your publishing company can help you set the record straight. And of course, within Altmetric, you get a wealth of information such as timelines, split by all the different attention types, distribution with news, for example, news from across the world that are talking about what you have just searched or what I have just searched. And you can also be very specific. So I just want attention from patents, policy, what the BBC said, and also the World Health Organization. These are just the three sources that I'm interested in. And to wrap it all up, you go back into Dimensions and you look at clinical trials and see okay, so for prevention, who are the top institutions doing research on that? Are they existing collaborators? Would it be great to reach out to them and have just to start something new? Of course, prevention is a very large field, and you would have to be very specific in what you're interested in. But this is just for example purposes. And the thing that I've left for last is tech transfer. And it's something that has become more of a buzzword lately. Everyone is talking about tech transfer, either if in the context of the ref or any other country level assessment exercises, research assessment exercises. And here are some examples of what you can do with dimensions. So what I did, again, I renamed an institution as Liliput University, and I looked at what are their 5 major fields of research, and took the top 2 just because it's easier to explain. So information systems and artificial intelligence. And usually for all institutions, either corporate or universities that I've looked at so far, at least, when it comes to corporate, the number of publications is significantly less than the number of patents they have. With universities, is the other way around. So always something to keep in mind when looking at patents. But it's always interesting to see that, at least for universities, the major disciplines where they have intellectual property or they have patents is completely different to their major disciplines where they publish a lot. So that's always very interesting to see. But coming back to my slide here, so the top 5 FOR, and I took the first 2, and then looking if the open access in any way is influencing tech transfer. So is it more important to publish closed publications, or is it more important to publish open access publications? And it's actually quite interesting to see that even though the overall number of closed publications is significantly higher than the open access publications, the number of publications that end up being cited in patents is not that much different. So if theoretically the number of open access publications would have been just as high as the closed one, the patents or the publications that ended up being mentioned in patents would have been higher as well. And also you can see who is citing Liliput University's publications in those FORs. Are they companies they are collaborating with currently? Are they not? Should they? And I guess if you see a Google or IBM or Microsoft or any of these ones here, you might want to reach out to them, or vice versa, if you haven't already. And actually, I've been quite fast in talking, and I do want to extend the challenge to you. So what would you like Dimensions and Altmetric to do? What would you expect from a database like that? And feel free to drop me either just ask here. I am good to come up with ideas on the spot. If it's more complex, of course, I would need a bit more time. But feel free to email me with any ideas that you would want Dimensions and Altmetric to do for you. And yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know.
Well, thank you very much for that, Christina. That was a very interesting presentation. Ingenta will actually be running more webinars in the coming months, so please be sure to check out the events page on our website or subscribe to our e-newsletter for more details. A recording of this webinar will be made available on the Ingenta YouTube channel, where you'll be able to listen to other recorded webinars as well and learn more about our publishing products, because obviously we've got quite a few different ones to have a look at. If you have any questions regards to our publishing and online discovery platforms or any other products, please do get in contact with us. If you wish to be added to the Ingenta newsletter, please also send an email to info@ingenta.com requesting to subscribe to it, and we can obviously add you to that, and that will provide more information there. Alongside PCG, which offer sales, marketing, and research for publishers as well. So if you're interested or you want to book up a meeting, just discuss your requirements, now's a good time to contact us to discuss that. Well, we hope you enjoyed that webinar. We hope you can join us for our next one. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Thank you for joining, and bye.